All right, guys, welcome back. I am super excited for this week. So, to preface a little bit, because I'm not going to tell anything about her story, and her husband's here too, but because I want you guys to hear and I want Delancey to listen to too. So, we have Makenzie and Ryan on, and I have been trying like a while ago to get Makenzie on, but she was just not in a spot that she was like comfortable to share her story, which is totally fine. I get that. Everybody has to get to that spot, but she's finally ready. And I'm so pumped because we asked we asked her to come on and do this with us. And I'm not going to say anything because I want you guys to like follow it. And those of you that listen to us know how Delancey is when she finds out things. So it'll be fun to like listen as we go. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn the time over to you guys, and the floor is yours.
Okay, awesome. Well, we'll start from the beginning. I'm from Utah. My stepdad was in the Air Force, so I moved around, and then I came back to Utah to go to cosmetology school, and that is where I met Ryan, and he was playing football at BYU, and yeah, I was a little Jersey chaser, and
I wasn't going to say it.
I got you. And we just, well, let's see. Sorry, it's a lot to process, and there's so much. I could talk for probably hours, so I'll try to give you like the shortened version of it all. We dated for about a year. I wouldn't say dated. We were physical with each other for about a year, and I ended up getting pregnant, and we weren't ready to be together. We weren't ready for a serious relationship. We were both, trying to go to school, trying to figure our lives out. And I moved out of my house when I was 17. And so there was a lot of life I still wanted to live and figure things out. So feel free to chime in whenever you want.
I think before we get into that,
way better at talking than I am. Why?
I think before we get into those minor details, maybe it'd be a good idea to kind of explain where we are now. That way, when we tell you the details, it's a little bit more impactful, if that makes sense. There's a little bit more meaning behind it.
No, so for sure. Yeah.
Makenzie and I have been married for 9 years. We've got 4 kids. And then we've also placed one for adoption. So that's 5 kids. And we decided to get married after we placed our first son for adoption. So that's kind of why we're here telling our story. That's what makes us so unique, if that makes sense. And so Kenzie's right. We absolutely had a physical relationship. Totally a taboo thing for Provo, Utah.
Yes.
Right. And so that was, though it wasn't common, I think it wasn't common to get pregnant in those circumstances.
Yeah.
Which we did. And there's a lot of pressure from that experience, from I would say our families and maybe the culture in that community in Provo, Utah. And then, but once you're in that situation, it's really difficult to navigate, especially when you're young. And Kenzie and I were fairly young, or 18, 19 years old.
I think I just turned 19. Yeah.
And so already in that adolescent stage, it's difficult to navigate things like that, even if you're not in an environment that has a lot of religious pressure. And so you add that on top of it, and it's quite the story, especially that I just mentioned, that where we are now and where we came from. And so we'll back up just a little bit and resume with Kenzie here. But yeah, we met. She was a Jersey chaser, I'm not gonna lie.
I just love that. I love that it's Jersey chaser. I love that it's Jersey in the South, or well, at least in the South that I know of, and all I've ever heard was cleat chaser. So the fact that we say Jersey chaser makes it sound a little more dignified. I like that.
I like that.
I like that a lot.
Level up. So in that way, it makes us unique. We haven't heard of a lot of couples that have experienced the same thing that we have. However, we do have a couple sets of friends that actually placed around the same time that we did, who have gone on and have had amazing relationships with their children, and with each other as well. There's one other couple that we're really close with that actually had the same exact experience in Provo, Utah, placed their child for adoption because they weren't in love. And then through that experience and through our experience, fell in love. Wow. And then later on had multiple more children. And so it does happen, but it's extremely unique. And so we're very appreciative of telling our story, because I think there might be some people out there that could probably relate to us.
No, it's definitely rare. And that's what caught my eye with
It
it when I
is.
like first spotted Makenzie, because I'm like, wow, especially with the culture here in Utah. It is
Mhm.
like all that religious pressure. Holy shit, it is a lot. Like it really is. Like I get it.
Right.
And just like to see you guys, and like you said, Ryan, where you guys are at now, it is so beautiful. Like I just like you so seeing your guys' family and everything. So like it's just amazing. So I'm excited to hear more. Okay, go ahead, Makenzie.
You're
Oh.
so sweet. No, I don't really know why I'm here. He's way better at it. You can tell I have like ADD so bad. I'm like, why am I a host? Ryan should be the podcast host.
Well,
Look
you're
how
here
much-
because you fit in with us, because that's how we
Yes.
are. So you're good.
Okay,
Ryan's gonna be
good.
the one that's reining
Good.
us all in, I'm
Right?
guessing.
Get it together. Yeah, no, I'm more of like random facts here and there. So that's what you're gonna get from me. And then he'll pull it together for me. That's kind of how our life is too. It's like I'm like, let's go. And Ryan's like, okay, pump the brakes. Chill
Love
out.
it.
But yeah, like you said, it was kind of personally for me, it was really hard, like we said, in Provo, Utah. I'm just gonna give you guys all the details because that's just how I am. Again, just overshare. But my friend actually, she got a pregnancy test and she didn't want to be alone when she took it. And so I was like, sure, I'll take one with you. So we both took a pregnancy test, and hers was negative and mine was positive. And I had no idea.
God.
Like I was like, no, we must have switched our tests. We must like, there's no way. There's no way. So I did like 10 more. And I was like, okay, I'm pregnant. And so that night, I mean, I lived in my grandparents' basement. They're, very LDS, and just being under their care and then having that happen was kind of like a lot of added stress for me.
Mhm.
But I felt like I was, not only letting everyone down, but my grandma and grandpa that, are very close to me, were my second parents. And so I just remember panicking, like just being like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do. And we had actually like called it quits like a month before that. So it was kind of crazy. So for me to find out I was pregnant, I was like, wow, I must be pretty far along. I don't know how I, didn't know this. So to take that pregnancy test, my friend, have her be negative and me be positive, it was a lot. I was not prepared, not mentally prepared at all. So I actually kept it a secret, and I didn't want anyone to know until I could figure out what I personally wanted to do. And abortion was not an option for me. And, with my religious background, it was just something that I didn't even think about. I was just like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be a mom. I got this. And, again, I hate to keep bringing up religion, but growing up in the religion I did, you were told that, you're supposed to be a mom. This is like your calling.
Mhm.
And so to me, I'm like, okay, this was all meant to happen. I'm supposed to be his mom. I'm supposed to, keep moving forward. And, but again, being a 19-year-old and not having any guidance and not knowing where to turn, my dad, or my stepdad's in the Air Force. And so my mom and dad were actually living in Korea. And so I couldn't really talk to my mom in person about it. And I was like, so scared to call her and tell her.
Right.
And, yeah, I was working at Carrabba's at the time, and Ryan could tell I was being really emotional and really weird towards him. We were still talking, even though we had broken up. He went off to did you leave to go wildland firefighting like right before that? Or were you coming home? You were coming home. It was in September.
That's right.
No, he was born in May. So September. Okay. So he was coming home. He did wildland fire. Sorry.
This is a long time ago. We're
It was
trying to.
a long time ago, okay? 11 years ago.
And it's
I'm
probably not
trying.
even the truth. We're like
We're making our own story here. We're at
It
that
sounds
point
good.
now. I'm sure all my friends are like,
This sounds fine. This
Yeah.
fits together.
That's
This is
what
a good puzzle piece. We're gonna fill this
we're
in
here to
It's fine.
entertain, okay? We're here to entertain. So he was getting home from wildland firefighting, and he was like, you're acting weird. What's going on? So he shows up to my work, and he goes, "Are you pregnant?" And I was like, "What?" And so I like called my manager. I was like, "I need to go take a breather for a second." And so we sat down and we started talking, and I was shocked. I thought he was going to be like mad. I didn't know how he was going to react. I was kind of like, "How did you know I was pregnant?" Like, I wasn't going to tell you until I figured it all out, because, it's really embarrassing, but I didn't even know like how my cycle worked and when my period started and ended at that point. So I didn't know how far along I was. There was just a lot of things that I was still trying to figure out. So
you mean you were a naive LDS girl?
I was. I
Yeah,
had
I was
no
gonna
idea.
say, don't
I was
feel
gonna-
dumb for not knowing, because
Don't.
it's sad. We need to educate in that part more, because that's not your fault. That's not your
We
fault at
really,
all.
we really do, because those that are not just LDS, but like various religions where it's
Yeah.
very prominent that the only thing that's taught is abstinence. And I mean, as much as I would like to say, yes, that's the answer, it is the answer, there still needs to be some kind of education there.
You're
So
absolutely right, because
Yeah.
things do happen, and when it does, people are prepared for it.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then it results in you being, scared and worried and not knowing how, like, I mean, obviously you know how, but like you don't know the mechanics behind everything. So no, it's
So Kenzie's
Yeah, I learned a lot.
a 19-year-old gal. She's scared. Mom and dad, who she's close with, are, as far away in the world as they could be.
Right.
I'm living in Provo, Utah by myself. I don't have any family there with me either. Everybody else is in California. I'm the only one here. And so I don't have any support either. Kenzie and I both have an interesting upbringing, in which I would argue that our father figure is, I would argue, is probably unstable for the both of us.
Gotcha.
I didn't have one growing up. Kenzie had multiples, but through that experience in her adolescence, it wasn't the strongest for her.
Right.
And so that played a little bit into my decision making and wanting to place our son for adoption, because I grew up without a father. Kenzie and I weren't in love at the time, and this is my analytical brain working, right? As a 21-year-old kid, just knowing what I experienced.
Right.
And so that's how I felt as a child. I wanted to be able to give my child somebody, a set of parents, a mom and a dad who loved each other, who could set a good example for that child. And I think Kenzie, a little bit of her wanted that too. I can't speak for her on behalf of that, but that was kind of my perspective on wanting to place our child for adoption, or at least doing a little bit more research as far as the option goes.
No, thank you for sharing that, because I feel like more people need to hear that from the male perspective, like the father perspective, because we have kind of noticed too. I feel like a lot of birth dads get a huge bad rap, and not all of them are like that. We've had one on who is amazing, and it's not like that. So thank you, because we are very more women heavy on our podcast. So I love it when guys come on and they share that, because it's not something that a lot of men talk about. And so thank you for sharing that with us.
Well, it's the honesty behind it and the rawness behind you saying like your perspective, and even you saying, this is my analytical mind, this was what I grew up with, this is what I wanted to give. It's like, yes, more people out there need to hear from the male perspective, and from people like you and the birth that we've had on before. It's just it's so important.
It is.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And since I was a child, I mean, I've always wanted to be a father since I was a little kid. And
He's a good dad.
And I remember, like, as a 5, 6, 7-year-old, just thinking how awesome of a father I'm going to be, because I don't have one. And so it wasn't that I didn't want to be a father to our child. It's that I wanted to give him what I didn't have. And I wasn't able to provide that at the time with her, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
no, it's amazing. That actually makes a lot of sense.
Everybody who listens just fell in love with you. I'm just gonna say
100%, 100%.
Anytime he talks, shows up in the camera, he's like all cool and collected. And yeah. Everyone loves him.
She's a hater.
I'm not.
She is my biggest critic, but I have to have that.
Yeah.
Gotta knock me down.
I do. I gotta pop that bubble. No, and for me, like, I can honestly say now, like 11 years later, I was not in a place to be a mom. As bad as I wanted to be a mom, I mean, I dare say, like over the past 3 to 5 years is when I've actually been able to find myself and emotionally mature, because there was a lot of trauma that I had gone through that I needed to process in order to get to the point where I am now, to be the mom I am now. And, you know, I hate to say cliche things, that everything happens for a reason, but I truly do believe the way things worked out for us and for our birth son. And I know this is not for everyone, but it was exactly what we needed and what we needed to go through to be the couple we are now and to be the parents we are now. Which was really hard for me to see as a 19-year-old that was pregnant and, you know, wanted to keep her baby. And I, again, like just feeling like, no, this is my calling in this life. I'm no longer LDS. I will just say that, but there are some things that still stick with me. Like there are things growing up that I was told that was what I was supposed to do. That was my calling in life. And that's what, you know, my whole path was supposed to be about. So the thought of having to place my child for adoption, I was like, no, that's not an option. Like I'm supposed to be his mom. I'm going to parent him. And it took a lot of convincing, and not really convincing, but like soul searching for me and having mature conversations when I was not mature with him. He's always been mature. He has, I'm being sarcastic. But for me, like I had so much growing up to do. And I think, like I said before, unresolved trauma that I just wasn't ready. So he came to me and he said, there's this convention that I want you to go to. It's at Utah Valley University. It's going to be a panel of birth moms, adoptees, adopted parents. And I really think we need to go and just listen to them, hear what they have to say. And I reluctantly went with him. And he picked me up and we go and we're sitting there and I'm listening to these people talk, and it was just so foreign to me. And I already went in there with kind of a closed mind. So I wasn't ready to listen to what they had to say. And again, coming from like an immature 19-year-old, I was like, no, this is not for me. Like I really just don't think this is what I want to do. And I think after that convention, you and I sat down and we had a tough conversation where we were both like, yeah, we like each other. Things are good physically with us, but we're just not in a place to be parents. And, you know, we talked about our goals and where we wanted to be in life. And at that point, you know, that just unfortunately wasn't an option for either of us. And as much as I would have loved that to be a mom. And so we decided to look even further. And that's when I got online, because social media still wasn't that big. I mean, in 2009, I think was when I got my Facebook profile. So that was like a year before I got pregnant. Or was that was the year I got pregnant, wasn't it? Nope, that's not true.
I was like,
I like how you just sat there and just looked at her and was
math
like,
is hard. Okay, math is hard, and it's like the first day of summer, and all my kids are home, and I'm like about to scream. Anyways,
we're lucky that they've been good for this.
I know.
long,
I'm like shocked. I hope they're all alive because it's been really quiet. I don't know what I did, but
that's because they're in something,
right? Or
don't say that.
I'm just saying, listen, as an aunt, I just know these things. When they're quiet, I know I'm finding them in something.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, especially our 3-year-old. Where were we? So no, I got pregnant in 2011, right? Yours don't matter. Yours don't matter.
I love how she keeps looking at him and he's like, I have no idea.
But then I was pregnant 12 years ago. Okay, again, numbers are hard. So I looked up LDS services because that was the only adoption agency that I had ever heard of. And again, being LDS, I didn't know where else to turn. That's what was familiar to me. So I went to LDS services. I met with the social worker there. And she's like, okay, this is what we do. We do closed adoptions. This is the step you take. This step you take. I'm going to go ahead and email you all these families. You go ahead, take a look, and we'll get back to you. And I was like, oh, it was like overwhelming for me. And so I went back to my apartment. I called Ryan. I said, the social worker is sending me all these parents that are looking to adopt. Why don't you come over and we'll look at them? And I know in our podcast that we did together, I said something like 200 families, and it was pretty close to that. And we spent like the 2 days just going through them, scrolling through, reading all of them.
Just judging the heck out of everyone.
Oh, I'm sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Nope.
Like, oh, this
Okay.
guy, he's got a receding hairline.
Receding-
Stop it right now.
I was
know-
about to say, do they have pictures? Like what
Yes.
exactly
Some
did this
weird
look
And
like?
we were
Ew.
seriously judging the heck out of all of them.
Not supposed to admit that.
It's
Wait,
true,
wait,
you
wait.
know.
Okay, I do have a
That's
question.
natural though, I feel like.
Because it does kind of
Oh.
irk me. They only do
Mhm.
closed adoptions. I know LDS Family
Yes.
Services is like, aren't LD, whatever,
Yeah,
whatever.
LDS
They're
services.
fizzled out, right? It's no
Yeah, they're
more.
done. Yep. In
But
fact, it was
why
like-
only closed? Like that really bugs me.
You know what? That's a good question. In fact, I want to do more research on that because I did do a ton of research, and it actually, there was a year there where I was really upset because all of a sudden I was like, wait, is the LDS Church against adoption? Like I was having a
Right.
really hard time with it.
No.
And to be honest, I don't fully remember. I
Okay.
know that they wanted to put more money and more resources into something else, but that's all I remember. So they just didn't think it was worth it at that point. So
That
From
really
the
bugs me.
outside, it appears that that's kind of a statement on their end.
yeah.
Maybe they're not advocating for adoption or supporting that
Mhm.
option. So that's at least my perspective on it, which I still don't understand because it does
Yeah.
still happen, obviously.
Right.
Yeah, more
Interesting.
research
No.
into that, I think, but
I
yeah.
have
No,
so many
agreed.
questions for them now.
No,
Like not
I
like
know.
not them, but like LDS
church?
them.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, the church
them.
them, other
Yeah.
people them, other
Right.
people them. Like
No,
I
I know.
You know
have
what?
I
I
have
want to do
questions.
more research on that because I do work for a
Yeah.
nonprofit adoption agency, and it has been brought up a few times. But I need to make sure I'm getting the right story before I say anything because I don't know 100%.
Right.
No, but I mean,
So-
like they did tell you the closed part bugs me too. Is it's like,
Yeah.
and I feel like you guys didn't place as long ago as like me, who's like almost 36, and I get everything was closed then. But
Yeah.
I was
it's
about to say, or
like,
me who's almost 40 saying
right,
like
you know, like, but 11, 12 years ago, kind of like,
I
what the hell?
feel
I'm gonna have to
like
look in that too.
open was
Is that-
more of it wasn't open more available back then. I
That's
feel
what
like
I
there were
feel,
actual like
yeah.
relationships. I do have one more question
I
about
gotta make a note.
the things, the
Oh yeah, the adopted family.
applications, the families. Yes.
Yes.
So
Sorry, I'm
okay.
gonna move us a little bit closer so I can sit
Was
back.
it like I did because this is what I'm picturing. I'm picturing the two of you sitting like you are now, and you have
Yeah.
this giant like 3-inch binder like you would get for school.
Uh-huh.
And it like has a bunch of tabs in it with like the last names on each tab, and you have it between y'all and y'all are just flipping through and like you're making notes on them. Was it like that or was it different?
So it was actually all online. So she emailed it to me.
Wow.
Yeah, which is
Okay.
interesting, right? 12 years ago.
Okay.
And so yeah, it just had it had pictures. It's kind of like what it is now. If you look at like adoption agencies online, they just had
never
pictures
looked.
and they got to write a letter to the birth mom and the birth dad.
Mhm.
Mostly the birth mom because there's not a lot of birth dads. That's usually why people place. But
Right.
yeah, so we just went through them like within
Wow.
Ryan said there were some that we could just like flip through and be like, okay, let's go.
Like
Was
he's
it like
bald.
a swipe left, swipe right situation?
They
You know
were
what?
now
That
I'm
would make it
picturing you
easier.
right, but they were all the wrong way.
I mean, that would have made it easier.
We haven't had
if
those
they gave
dating
us
apps
that
yet.
option.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting here
Right.
thinking like
Oh,
I'm
it's
trying to
completely
remember
No.
like was that a thing back then? Was that a thing? I don't remember.
think
I don't
so.
think it was. Okay, so all right.
It's not
Okay,
that
well
long
now
ago.
I don't know. Okay. I just like I'm now picturing them with a tablet and they're swiping like left. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Receding hairline.
Probably
Yeah,
do it
doesn't
now.
play sports.
Swipe left. All of it.
No.
Right.
But yeah, we just unfortunately there were a few families that we were like, okay, yeah, maybe. But we never felt that like
Nothing felt right.
yeah,
like,
nothing like in
nothing
the
felt-
punch of the gut, like, yes, this is it.
Yeah.
And so we decided, it's kind of funny now because I'm like all about social media, but I decided to be really brave and post on my Facebook, basically saying, I am pregnant. I have decided to place my child for adoption. and we are looking for someone to adopt our child. And I had no idea the kind of response we were about to get.
It was like Facebook Marketplace, you know what I'm saying? Like you just put the baby up.
I was about to say the anti-adoption people
invented
are
it,
their
but we're not getting
brains
any,
are
any-
exploding. Oh, this is amazing. I am
And no, I
loving
did
that this
not
is
sell
on
my
Facebook.
baby, for the record.
He's
right.
over here like, are you kidding? We put it on Marketplace.
Yeah, we did.
No, so we were shocked. We had, I want to say, in fact, I want to go back through and look through them all.
That'd be kind of cool.
It would. I mean, they're still on there. But yeah, we had like 500 messages, you guys, within a few hours.
Wow.
Yeah, of local people.
Yeah.
Wow.
And somehow like there's a connection between everybody, right? Like
Yeah,
we knew somebody,
right.
knew somebody.
Yep.
So there was that
Yeah.
connection. Really cool.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
crazy. So we were scrolling through them. I called him and I was like, you're not gonna believe this. We got a way bigger response than what we were planning on. You know, I was thinking maybe 1 or 2, 3 people. No, there's like
500.
Yeah. And so
I say jokes on you. 500 people
right?
were like, yes, pick
Like,
us.
this is where I needed that big notebook to start putting some
To start like going
stuff
through.
in there.
Yes.
Yeah. And like, yeah. But our adoptive parents, they came up like out of 50 of those messages, and that their name just stuck with me. I was like, I know that name from somewhere. And
yeah, so multiple people mentioned them.
Thanks for
right? If that makes sense.
Yes.
Wow.
Sorry.
So it was almost like recommendations.
Don't
message me 50 times.
No, yeah. So
No, we
multiple
had
people that
multiple
they
people.
knew
Yeah.
Wow.
mentioned their name and were like, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's
Right?
crazy.
Yeah. So I clicked on their Facebook profile and I saw that they were actually friends of my parents, and they had played on the same co-ed softball team my entire adolescent life. And so I was like, oh my gosh, you know, this is so-and-so. I love these guys. They're awesome. They're super athletic. They're so sweet. And so we started doing a little bit more digging, and we had found out that they had been trying to conceive for over 10 years.
Wow.
And that kind of just like, you know, gut wrenching. And again, listening or reading all these messages that we got from people we knew, and, you know, people who knew people we knew, you know, you start getting all these stories, and we were overwhelmed. We were like, we had no idea that adoption is such a big thing. We didn't know so many people were affected by adoption and infertility. That was something that, you know, my 19-year-old little head could not wrap my mind around. Because
Here we thought, you know, you have sex and you get pregnant. Everybody gets pregnant. But
yeah.
now we're finding out that a lot of people don't get pregnant, and it's a huge deal.
Right.
Yeah.
It's super sad.
Yeah, it was really sad. We cried a lot that day. But we definitely felt a huge connection to this certain couple. And so I messaged her, and she got right back to me, and she's like, do you guys want to go to dinner? And we're like, sure, let's go. And so we went to La Jolla Groves, and where is that? Doesn't matter. In Provo. The River Bottoms, thank you. And here I am, little
we
details.
should have like Chuck E. Cheese or something.
Oh, right, something more.
Could have made
more
a cool stuff.
No, we should have thought that through, huh? So we show up and we sit down, and we all kind of just like sat there quietly, and the energy that was there was insane. Like, me and Ryan just kind of looked at each other, and we were like, I like them. He's like, yeah, me too. Like, you know, we could tell. And we started talking, and we started realizing how similar we are. I'm so similar to the adoptive dad, and Ryan and the adoptive mom are so similar in so many ways. And we just hit it off, and we stayed there for, you know, 2.5 hours, just talking to each other, asking questions. And we left that dinner just, I don't know a better word, but energized.
I love that he supports her and says, yes.
He does.
That's it.
Yes.
Energized. That's kind of like, what was that other word I was struggling with? Anyways, yes. I just felt like
You'll make
See,
it over real quick.
this is where I wish we edited, so I could go back and not say that. But here we are.
If you guys have like captioning at the bottom, if you could just spell that energized correctly, that
energized.
Yeah, energized.
I love that.
Oh
So yeah,
gosh.
we left that that dinner. Kenzie and I both had a great feeling, and I remember thinking I would have loved these guys as my parents, right? And so that to me was like, these guys feel right, right? And I don't get that feeling often, but that's something that I've always.
Okay, now
wanted.
make sure you caption too, please.
Yes.
Always.
Yes.
That's
Always.
something that I've always yearned for, right? Is as a couple like that as parents, and so it felt right. It felt right, and it felt good. And you looking for the kids up there?
Yeah, I thought I heard someone, but we're good. Yeah, no, and I felt the same way. I the adopted mom and I, we have so much in common as well. We were able to talk about so many different things. I was going to cosmetology school. She was a hairdresser. Like there were just so many different things. We both grew up playing sports, and we really wanted someone that was going to give our son, we figured he'd be athletic. We wanted our son to also have parents that loved sports and loved supporting him in that. And so there were like a few things that we wanted to check off, and they checked off every box.
They were pretty much Kenzie and I, but 10 years older and 20 years more mature.
Yeah. Way wiser. Still are. Yeah.
They're awesome.
They
look up to
are
them big time.
Yes. And we just love them so much. So we got into the car, we both looked at each other, and we both just burst out into tears. I think that was the first time I've ever seen Ryan cry. And we both just looked at each other and we're like, this is it. This is the couple. And for the very first time, I felt an overwhelming peace come over me, knowing that this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, and that is where my son is supposed to be. And I, you would think that I would feel like scared or nervous, but it was something that I can't even put into words. It's just complete peace. I had so much going on in my head trying to figure out, do I love this guy? Do I try to make it work? Do I quit everything I'm doing right now and just go for it? And all of the questions, all of the confusion was wiped away, and I just felt so much peace. And I decided to sleep on it because that's what he told me to do. Not that I wanted to do that, but I went home and I prayed. I'm a huge believer in prayer still to this day. And I got on my knees and I prayed, and I said, if this is what I'm supposed to be doing, if this is the path I'm supposed to be taking right now, if this is where my birth son is supposed to go, so be it. And I woke up that next morning, and you guys, I've never felt, like I said, just so much peace and just so much comfort knowing that this is what I was supposed to be doing. And so I couldn't wait any longer. I slept on it, like he said. So I called her and I was like, do you want to meet in person? I'd love to talk to you. And she was like, yeah, or we can just talk on the phone. Like, you can just tell me if you want. And I was like, okay, because her and I are both like very impatient people. That is the one thing we do have in common.
Our kids get their Christmas presents the day before Christmas.
That's a lie. Maybe 1 or 2 years, not anymore.
She can't keep a secret ever.
Okay, birthday. Okay, we're not going down that road. So yes, so I called her and I said, I want to place my baby with you. And there was silent, and then we both just burst into tears. And she's like, I love you so much. Like, thank you so much. But, I have to go call my husband. I'll call you right back. Like, thanks again. I'll call you right back. And she was just overjoyed. And, sorry, I'm going to get choked up over that. That moment, again, I just felt so much peace. Sorry. You can take over for a second.
Don't be sorry.
Do not be sorry.
Because that shows how much you love your son, and how hard of a freaking hella hard that decision was. But I mean, you're not part of the religion anymore, but dude, you still believe in God, and God was there hey, I got your back.
And
You can feel it. You talking about it, I can even
Mhm.
feel it. And I guarantee Delancey can too.
100%. 100%.
But don't ever
Well, and
apologize for crying.
never apologize for crying. We do it often. And not
Yeah.
just that, but there's something really beautiful about the piece that you're talking about, that it brings out
Right.
those emotions because you feel
Yes.
comfortable releasing them
Mhm.
and you feel safe because you know that it's right. So
100.
I appreciate the fact that you still even 11 years later get emotional, because that just shows how right you knew it was and how at peace you were.
Mhm.
Thanks for saying that, because there are days that are a lot harder than others still.
I
So,
bet. No.
and I thought it would get easier with him growing up, because I'm like, oh, well, I can talk to him about it. We can communicate about it. It'll be different. And we actually just went to his birthday party last week, and he turned 11. And he is, oh gosh, I just have so much love for him. I could talk about him for hours, but he just is like the sweetest, most loving kid. And my kids, they love him. They feel that connection with him. And we all had so much fun. And every time I see him, like, a part of me is a little sad, but then there's a huge part of me that's like, no, this is exactly where he's supposed to be. And these are they're supposed to be his parents, and they have done such a good job with him. And the opportunities he has, we have so many freaking kids. We can't keep up with everything he does right now. Like, he's in piano, karate, like, he does it all. And I'm like, you know what? And he's good at everything too. And I just have like an overwhelming love for him. And so after that phone call, there were days that were hard. I don't know if you guys have ever heard Maria Osmond's song about adoption. She actually wrote it for her birth mom. And it talks about how,
Wait, Marie Osmond's
I was
adopted?
going to say, back up, hold on.
I'm
What?
sorry, not her birth mom, but her birth mom that gave her her daughter.
Oh, I was
okay.
like, what the
Okay,
hell?
I was
The
about to be
Osmonds are
like,
adopted. I was
hold
so
on.
No,
Yeah,
no,
my
sorry.
whole childhood was about to be wrecked. Like,
We're starting
wrecked.
rumors here.
Oh my God. I
You
should
heard
not
it
be
here
allowed to
first,
talk, you
folks.
guys.
It's gonna be memes everywhere.
No, she adopted, and
Okay.
she wrote a song for her daughter's birth mom. And it's called From God's Arms to My Arms to Yours.
Wow.
And that song I would just play on repeat when I had hard days. And honestly, that, I know that sounds so funny, but that is what got me through my hard days, was just listening to that song, knowing that I am doing the best thing for my son, and that I know that God does have a hand in it. I know that, and I can even tell you now, like, if I could talk to my younger self, I would say, you are doing the right thing. Look at your life now.
Well, she brings up a good point, and I think this is really interesting and unique for our situation. And something that I take issue with is people commonly ask Kenzie and I, do you ever regret placing your son for adoption? That is a question we get all the time.
Really?
And I don't get mad at people because it's out of ignorance and they just don't know, right? Because they're just curious and they don't. This whole adoption journey and experience is unique to not that many people, right? Yeah, there's people all over the world placing for adoption, but a lot of people don't get to experience what it's like or know anybody who has been placed, so they don't understand the sensitivities behind those questions. But it's hard for Kenzie and I to hear that sometimes. And for the first little while, when people started asking me that, I started to think, I'm not sure what life would be like otherwise.
Yeah.
Maybe if we had not placed our son for adoption, maybe Kenzie and I wouldn't have experienced what we have and ended up together. Because what I will say is, the thing that pulled us together was that experience of placing our son together, because in the whole world, her and I were the only ones who were feeling the exact same way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that
it does.
component of our love and what brought us together was the absence of our son and placing our son. And so it's really hard to know whether Kenzie and I would be together or not if we had not placed him, if that makes sense. So my answer to that when people ask me is absolutely not. We don't regret placing our son for adoption. He's got an amazing and beautiful life. And we do too. We've all been blessed. And we might not be here today if that hadn't happened. We might not have our 4 beautiful children if we didn't do. You never know, right? But that's always that constantly goes in our heads when people ask us those questions.
Right, and I'll comment on that as well. I love you, honey. Did you get water?
Kids are okay. I hope you know that. Mine sneak in all the time, so don't even worry
about
them if they come and pop in.
Your fur baby's sitting right here, so
babies.
Yeah.
Your fur dog.
My fur,
Your fur baby.
My fur child's over here sitting in the lap because she can't be anywhere without in the lap.
Having babies.
Yeah.
As well. So
yes, she's gone right now. I'm really sad. We miss her. But I'll also say something to that. I think placing my son for adoption was kind of a huge wake-up call of like, wow, I just had something really big happen. And I'm not going to let that decision go to waste. I'm going to be the best person I can be for my birth son and for my future kids and for my future husband. And I really needed that year after placing him to just heal from the trauma that I had gone through as a child, to go and just kind of, I was always the perfect child. Perfect, not perfect, but I was always like, no, I'm not going to drink alcohol. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. I followed all of the rules that I was supposed to follow. And so I kind of needed to go through that stage where I could just go and be myself and figure out who I am without everyone else telling me who I am or what I'm doing. And I think after going through such a huge experience like that, where I literally had to get to the point where I could not care what people thought of me because it would be too overwhelming. Oh, look how cute.
Yeah, see what I'm telling you?
Yep. Sorry, it's that time.
Oh, Dad's here. Dad can take care of it. Don't apologize.
He's so cute. But for me, I really needed that year to just find who I was. And it was probably, well, let's go back. Sorry, we're good at jumping all over the place. But after we told the adoptive family that we are going to place with them, we would, we had communication with them throughout my entire pregnancy. They came with me when I found out that he was a boy. They were there at the ultrasound, and me and Ryan actually went through a point in that pregnancy where we weren't talking. We knew we were going to place our son for adoption, and so we kind of just went our separate ways for a little while. And so I called him. He was in California with his parents, kind of telling him what's going on and all the good stuff. And so I called him and I told him that it was a boy, and I think that kind of took him by surprise a little bit too, because he's like, oh, that's my son. And so, I mean, sorry, I shouldn't speak for you, but I know that you had expressed that to me. And so, we reconnected at some point. I don't really know. I probably begged him to talk to me or something. I don't called him 1,000 times. No. But we ended up getting back together, not together, but reconnecting. And he stayed with me for the last 2 months of my pregnancy and, brought me dinner, was, there for me, emotionally there for me. And, we both, I mean, I was pregnant, but I was obviously hanging out with other people and doing my thing, and he was doing his thing. And, I went into labor actually while I was at the adopted parents' house. My water broke.
Wow.
And yeah. And so, and my mom was there getting her hair done by the adopted mom. And I almost said her name. Sorry. The adopted mom came and just brought me all these towels. And she's like, I've got to finish my client's hair, but like, we'll meet you at the hospital. And I was like, okay. So Ryan was on his way there too. I called him. He was on his way. I don't know. I think you were meeting us for breakfast or something. Because I was already having really bad contractions. And I was like, I feel like today's the day. So we were all meeting for breakfast. And I told him, just kidding, come to their house. Like, we're having the baby. So I jump in my mom's Suburban. I have towels everywhere. And I mentioned this in our last podcast. My mom was going like on the most bumpiest road in Orem, and like every speed bump I'm like, Mom, slow down. But I really I have to say that's probably why my labor went so fast. I feel like
She got you.
she
To
was
say,
got me ready.
Mom was doing you a favor.
Yeah, she
Mom was
was.
like, I'm gonna
She knew
help
what she
you
was
out.
doing. Yeah, she knew what she was doing. So we show up to the hospital. I remember my doctor, he was so sweet about everything. We let him know we're placing our son for adoption, and got my epidural. We sat there and I had him 2 or 3 hours later. It was a
Wow.
very fast labor. Yeah. And we decided to have the adoptive parents come in after I was done giving birth. We kind of wanted our own time with him, and I wanted to hold him and connect with him, and tell him what I wanted to tell him before I handed him off. And what was your experience that day? You can share, because I'm going to get emotional again. So you might as well share before I start.
I just love her. I just love her. She is so
I
fun.
told you.
I am all over the place. I'm a
No,
lot.
she's awesome.
No, you fit right in with us. I love it.
You guys are so sweet.
I remember just feeling alone that day because I
Yeah.
didn't have any family there for me, and Kenzie had her whole family there for her,
Sure did.
and obviously they weren't the biggest fans of me.
No.
Right,
Right, at the time.
right.
Right.
I've changed.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm the
he's the
favorite
favorite
son.
by far. Like more than me. It's fine.
But at that time, I was the bad guy, and I was very lonely. That was a very difficult time for me because obviously we're going through all of those emotions while placing, but I didn't have any support either. So that was a really difficult thing for me to navigate. The only person that I felt connected with was Makenzie at the time. So I actually, with all 5 of our children, but starting with our first, slept in her hospital bed every night. So you have a bed that's like 2.5 feet wide with both of us on it, and we're just, spooning, and we stayed there for 2 nights each pregnancy.
Yep.
And so that first pregnancy,
All
we
5 babies? Are you for real?
we
That's
slept together
amazing.
in the same bed.
I'm gonna tell my husband what the freaking hell. No, I'm just kidding.
I was about to say, my future husband, if you're listening, like, you just need to go ahead and take notes and step up. Like, you already have a hot bar. Like,
No.
But it was really nice to be able to connect with her in that way. And I would argue that from that moment, maybe that's where our love story begins.
100%.
Probably.
I just remember like holding him on my chest. We actually have a picture my mom took, and Ryan is just on top of me as I'm holding Colin, and I have my hand around his neck like this, and we're both just crying holding him.
Yeah.
And I honestly think like at that point we felt, I hate to use the word energy again, but we felt such a strong energy and connection with each other. And we've been told a lot that it's like a trauma bond, which I could probably say, like, in the hospital we were both alone. Even though I had my family there, I felt like no one really understood the situation,
because nobody really supported it.
Yeah,
right?
No one,
even though that they were there physically,
yeah,
we knew they weren't there emotionally, if that makes sense.
Exactly.
And I think everyone was so for adoption until he was here, and then we had people come to us and say, we'll help you, like we'll help you take care of him, like don't place him, we'll be there for you. And I'm like, well, where were you that entire pregnancy?
Right.
Yeah, right. That's, golly, what a heavy thing to drop on somebody.
Yeah, it was a
last
lot.
minute like
It
that,
was a
right?
lot.
Yeah,
another thing that I always think about too is I try to think about everybody's perspectives, but especially the adoptive parents' perspective, who are sitting outside,
Right.
whole family inside the room, not knowing whether or not this is going to happen, but being invested for 8 months, right? 7 to 8 months, just being fully invested,
Right.
getting painting the nursery, getting everything, having a baby shower.
Yeah.
And that's where my head was at kind of too. Not that it was persuading me in any way, because it wasn't. The decision that we made was our decision. But that's all I've always thought about that. It's got to be extremely difficult for those people who are waiting for a child, who just don't know if it's going to happen or not. And there are cases where the birth mother decides to keep their children after they've made this agreement.
Yeah.
And that's totally fine.
Yeah.
That's absolutely fine to do.
Yes.
Right.
But it's just a very difficult situation on their end. And I've always kept them in mind.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that perspective for sure. Well, and I, so as Ryan said, I actually had a friend place her child for adoption about 6 months before I did. So I was only 3 months pregnant. In fact, I don't even know if I knew I was pregnant at that point. But she told me to write myself a letter that I could read in the hospital. And it's just a letter to myself saying why I'm doing what I'm doing. Write all the spiritual experiences, write down all of my feelings. And I did share that on our podcast. Some people were really moved by it. I personally was like kind of cringed out by it. So I was like, I'm not going to read it again, because it's personal, it's something that like I definitely wrote for myself to just keep it in perspective, because when you're going through giving birth to your first child, and then all of the hormones, all of the, medication, all of the people around you that are, either all for it or all against it, and having like no really true support on what I was doing. And again, being 19, I think about 19-year-olds that I now talk to and interact with, and I'm like, that is so young. And thinking back, I'm like, I don't really know how I was strong enough to go through with it and to do that, And so I really do think, like Ryan said, keeping it in perspective, even though you want to go with your emotions, but also going with your heart, but also going with your head, and finding that balance of, is this what I'm supposed to be doing or am I not? And so for me, like writing that letter to myself and reminding myself of all of the spiritual experiences, all of the things that I knew are the reasons that I was placing, and reading through that again and reading that letter to myself, I just felt that overwhelming peace, that peace that I can't even explain, just knowing that I knew I was doing the right thing. And as soon as the adoptive parents came in and they held him, in fact, we have pictures of them holding him for the first time, and they both start crying. So we're all crying, and all the nurses are crying, and, it's just such a spiritual experience. And again, like, I can't even put it in words, but just knowing that not only did we give this family an eternal family, but now we're all an eternal family. And I always talk about that. Like, we just added more people to our family. We're all just one big family, just supporting each other. And, my sister, she's actually an adoptive mom. She tried to get pregnant for 5 or 6 years, couldn't get pregnant. My young women's leader in Mississippi, because my dad's in the Air Force, she actually messaged me because she knew I placed my son for adoption. And she said, hey, like, I don't want to step on anyone's toes, but is your sister looking to adopt? I know she's been trying for a while. And I was like, I really, adoption's not her thing. She saw everything that I went through, and I just don't know if she's about it. And she was like, okay, well, let me know.
Facebook Marketplace for the winning game.
So you're such so then my sister, so then my sister actually calls me, or sorry. So I called my sister and I was like, look, I don't want you to get upset with me. Don't get mad at me. I'm just bringing to you what Molly brought to me. And she just started crying. And I was like, what? And she was like, I just went to the temple and I just had an overwhelming feeling that I needed to adopt. Wow. And this is the first time she's ever talked about adoption. It was kind of crazy how it all worked out.
The timing was pretty
cool. It was pretty, like, again, it's meant to be. And so she ended up adopting that birth mom's son. Wow. And he's the cutest thing ever. But divine intervention, I totally believe in it. And I think that because of what I went through, now my sister got to go through it and experience that. And I just feel like it's a ripple effect. And if you truly are listening to yourself and doing what you feel is best, you are going to be blessed for it. And I feel like because of everything that we've gone through, and because we had to go through that traumatic event, we've been able to navigate things and be blessed when we shouldn't have been blessed. Like there's things that have happened in our lives that have fallen into place. And I really truly believe it's because we went through that experience. And so that every single day, like when I'm having a hard day or I miss him, or something kind of triggers me, especially doing these podcasts with adoption. If I have like an emotional moment, I think about all the good that's come from it and all of the positive things, and watching him grow up and having an open adoption where I get to see him and make sure he's okay and know that he has good parents, and that, he has a brother that loves him so much. And I am just eternally grateful for adoption. I really am. And I can't say enough good things about it.
Yeah. And we do recognize though that every adoption story is different and every adoption story is unique, and this is ours.
Yes.
And it turned out pretty good for us and for everybody involved. We understand that that's not always the case. We have a lot of friends who have been adopted who might argue that with us.
Yes.
And so we realize that too.
Yeah.
But what I will say is maybe a piece of advice, maybe for the people watching this or listening to this, who are maybe experiencing adoption or looking at that option. Maybe following your heart. Makenzie mentioned writing in her journal her feelings and maybe her perspective, and trying to keep that in focus. Just a quick example of something that tried to detour us was right after we have had right after he was born, we had a blank check. One of our family members wrote a blank check and said, if you keep him, you can have this, just write whatever you want down on it. And so that was a distractor last minute to us that, and we didn't even consider it, because it wasn't about money. It wasn't about anything like that.
Right.
What we wanted was the best thing for our child. It wasn't a blank check. That wasn't it at all. So we had to keep that in mind, and like I mentioned, that was not even a thought for us. It wasn't even a consideration for us. So moving forward, if you're listening to this, maybe and you're in that same situation or experiencing adoption, maybe it'd be helpful to keep those priorities in mind, and those goals that you have. Keep all of that close to you, and keep those in mind, because what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of distractions going on, and a lot of people's opinions, and people are going to get involve themselves in the process because they love you, but they aren't you. And you have to keep in mind that this is your decision that you're going to have to live with. We're unique in that most fathers don't stick around, so it's mostly on the woman, the mother, and that's unfortunate. But my advice to the mother is do whatever you have to do for yourself and for your child, but make sure that whatever you do, it's for the right reason.
Yeah.
And so I think that Kenzie and I did a really good job at doing that. And I think because of that, what Kenzie had mentioned before, everybody has been blessed for it, we feel like, right? And so, and those blessings keep coming back to us in return as well. And we have an amazing and beautiful family now. Our birth son has an amazing and beautiful family, and everybody involved. And so we feel like we've kind of fostered that situation through good decision making with purpose, and not getting distracted. Not saying like not placing him would have been a distractor or a distraction to us, but keeping what's important to us close to us, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so it could be it's a very volatile time in people's lives, and uncertain time in people's lives, and there's no right way to do it. But I would say that if there is a right way to do it, it's with complete love and compassion for everybody involved, and understanding of who you are and what you want the situation to be. Otherwise, it can be very just convoluted with so many different perspectives, ideas, and it can be very well, it obviously is stressful naturally, but it can be extra stressful once other people get involved and other people's opinions start getting involved. So
yeah, well, and when you're dealing with hormones and you're dealing with, just so many different things, yeah, my biggest advice is to just follow your intuition and look, I mean, I always say like perspective is huge. You see the world through your own perspective. And if you're willing to just look through the lenses of other people and see what they're going through, and that's my thing on adoption too, is I'm okay if people don't have good experiences. I understand that's your perspective. That's what you went through. And I'm sorry. And I'm here to listen and I'm here to love you. And I know life is not fair. I know that there's and 100%. So I know that there are people out there that are hurting from adoption. And to those people, I want to say I love you too. And I'm sorry. And I'm sorry it wasn't a good experience. And sorry, I was looking down at my phone because I really wanted to say this. This is Marie Osmond's song too. It kind of goes back to that, but it just says, I'm not on a soapbox saying how we all should be. I'm just trusting in my feelings and I'm trusting God above. And I'm trusting you can give this baby both his mother's love. And I just feel like that's so important, especially me as a birth mom who does promote adoption and the positive side of adoption, that I'm not up here saying that you should be positive all the time. You should have the best experience, that you should acknowledge when there's hard times. I'm here saying life is a roller coaster. Life is hard. The emotions are hard. Listen to yourself and trust yourself and love yourself. I think that's the biggest thing I can say, because there were a lot of times where I didn't love myself and I had a lot of guilt. The things I did at that age, the decisions I made, I mean, I always say my best decision was placing my son for adoption at that time in my life, because I wasn't making the best decisions. And I can truly say that he was my biggest blessing. And because of him, I learned so much, and now I get to have this life that I have now. And like Brian said before, we don't even know if we would have this life if we didn't go through that. We probably wouldn't even like each other really if we had a co-parent without other stuff, So yeah.
Hi, honey.
Hi, sweetie. So yeah. That's how
I think something really interesting that both of you pointed out and stuff is like on the day of your son's birth and like the response from your family, Ryan, how you felt alone because you didn't have a lot of support, you were, I mean, quote unquote, the bad guy. Like, I mean, obviously not, like you're obviously everyone's favorite now, even like mine and Elena's, but it's like, it's something that, really interesting that y'all pointed out is that as you're sitting there, you're having this moment. Something that I think people need to understand is that something that hearing the story and like knowing the stories that we've heard from other people in other conversations, something that I think I've picked up on from other people is that fear makes people do some wild things and say like maybe, and it's unintentional for it to be wild and to be like outlandish and things like that, but it's almost like fear can manifest in the craziest times, even if they realize, like they know deep down this is the right thing to do, this is the right decision to make, this is the appropriate thing to do for everybody, blessings involved and all of that. But then the ultimate fear of the unknown makes people go with their emotional responses. And I love the fact that both of you were so centered, or you found a way to center yourselves in that moment to stay true to the decision that you both had come to. Like it was an equal part thing. And that's something that I just really wanted to highlight in this, because I don't know many 19 and 21-year-olds that can stay strong against a room of your family. Right. I mean, almost 40 and I would buckle in a heartbeat if I had my whole family like going, no, you need to do this. I'm like, okay, gotcha. Yeah, absolutely. I will do exactly what you're going to say. 100%. Yeah. So the fact that, I mean, and you both started with your story saying that you were not in that mature place. I love that you found that strength and that centeredness together to be able to have that maturity level to do what you knew was the right thing to do, despite other factors that were coming in. I love that and respect that so much about the two of you.
Right.
Thank you. Thanks for saying that. I think, looking back, like I said, it was so long ago. It's kind of like a big blur to me, yet it was the biggest decision I've made my entire life. And I was lucky enough I know some, God, someone bigger than me was definitely helping me that day, definitely giving me the peace and the strength that I needed to walk away.
Yeah, that was Percocet.
Walk away.
I knew you were gonna bring that up. So okay, well, now that he brought it up, it's kind of a funny story. So I had never taken pain pills before in my entire life. But I had a lot of pain down there, so they gave me a Percocet afterwards, and I let my dad have it. I let him have it, and I let my dad have it, and I just said the worst and most honest things to both of them.
It's like truth serum.
It was like truth serum. I let them have it. And my dad to this day will always still joke about what I said. But because of what I said, we now have the best relationship we've ever had, right? Moving forward. No,
he's like,
I love how he's like, I don't know.
Don't do drugs.
Do we?
Okay? That's all we have to say. Don't do drugs.
don't do drugs.
Don't do drugs, kids. Just don't do drugs.
No, and then we decided to sign the papers in the hospital because I didn't want to have to go to court. So once I was off drugs for about 48 hours, they came. I had Ryan in the room with me. I had my mom and I had my aunt, and we signed over our rights. And I don't think we were ready to hear those words. Like, those words are pretty harsh. In the contract, what it says when you sign over or when you sign the relinquishment papers. And that was something that also was extremely hard for us.
That was a heavy pen that day.
It was very, we were not ready.
Yeah.
Like, it just says, you are signing over every right to your child. You are doing this, you're doing this. And we just kind of were like, oh, what are we doing? Yeah. I think that was really heavy. So for those birth moms that are listening to this, or potential birth moms, just know it's hard. There's a lot that goes into it, and I know not every birth mom feels the way I do, and I will say that, but for me it was very hard hearing those words and knowing this is what I was doing, and it's done. Once I sign these papers, there's no going back.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that was one of the hardest times in the hospital, was just listening to that, hearing that. It was really heavy for both of us, and you were leaving to go back out on wildland fire, and so you had to leave and hurry and get packed up, and it was just kind of all of a sudden my entire life had changed. Ryan was leaving, my mom was going to get Cafe Rio, and I felt like she was leaving me forever, and all of a sudden I was just like, what did I just do? What's happening right now? That initial shock was really hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where, usually if you sign the papers in the hospital, you get your baby and you hand them off to the adoptive parents, and they leave, and then they will you out afterwards. And for me, it was a very hard emotional day that I looked at my nurse, and I was like, I don't think I can see him again. I said my goodbyes to him. I would like you to just tell the adoptive parents that they can go get him from the nursery and they can take him home.
Let me back you up just real quick.
I know what you're gonna say.
So we wanted to make sure that we were making the right decision. So we decided, and I'm not sure how most people do this, but we decided to stay in the hospital with our son for 2 days. Our insurance allowed us to stay for 2 days, and so we did. We stayed the full time. I never left the room. Kenzie and I were just there the whole time with our son. We just wanted to make sure that we were, like I mentioned, making the right decision. So we want to take things slow. We didn't want to just, sign everything immediately after and just make that decision quickly. We wanted to make sure that we were doing it methodically. And so 2 days go by. It's difficult not to develop a relationship with your child during that time, especially if it's just the three of you. at nighttime when nobody's around, right? It's a little bit easy to be distracted when family's here, but when it's just the three of you in a room, you know, um, there's some solitude to that and a lot of love in that environment. And so Kenzie and I felt that, but I think it was important that we spent that time together.
Yeah.
Because I think it really helped with the closure process too.
Yeah.
And making it so we felt like we were making the right decision. We didn't want to just sign him off and you know, and give him to his parents.
Yeah.
We wanted to spend time and make sure that we were making the right decision.
Yeah. I just remember saying a prayer with him, and I had also written a note to him, which I lost it, and I'm so sad about that. I actually wanted to give it to him for his birthday, and I couldn't find it, but I had written him a letter, and I had read it to him, just letting him know that I was doing this because I loved him, and that was it. Just so much love for him, and I just wanted him to have a mom and a dad. I wanted him to have a better life than we both did growing up. You know, we both grew up with you know, divorced parents and, you know, a dad that was never there. And I'm not saying that you know, that everyone should stay together or that they were going to be together forever, but I knew in that moment that I was doing what I was supposed to be doing, and that was the right decision. And I actually had a nurse, which she's an angel. She's actually a friend of the adoptive mom. And it was right after he had left and right after my mom went to go get me Cafe Rio, like I said. And she came in and she handed me a letter, and she handed me a blue bear. And she said, I lost a baby not too long ago in this hospital, and my nurse brought me a bear and told me that no mother should ever leave the hospital empty-handed. And
Gosh.
he handed me the bear. And again, such a spiritual moment in my life. That is something that I will, it's a core memory of mine. And she gave me a huge hug, and we both cried together, and she walked out of the room. And I know this lady. I've seen her multiple times. I still see her in the grocery store every once in a while, but I swear she was an angel from God. And she walked out, and I read her letter to me, and again, that was something that just gave me so much peace, knowing that I was doing the right thing.
Wow.
And without her, you know, that moment of pure panic and like, oh my gosh, like I'm alone. I made this decision, and now I have to personally live with it. I don't have Ryan. I don't have my mom. I don't have anyone that truly understands what I'm going through. Like I am by myself. And that was really, really hard. So for her to walk in right in at that moment was everything to me, knowing that people have gone through this before. I'm not the only one. People do understand. People can be sympathetic and empathetic, you know, like I'm not alone, and I don't have to feel this and be alone. And that was huge. Like I said, that is a core memory of mine that I will always have. And I'm truly grateful for her. And you know, Ryan left. I ate my Cafe Rio. In case anyone's wondering, my mom got me Cafe Rio. We ate it. And my mom wheeled me out of the hospital. And, you know, at that point, I had cried all my tears out. I could not cry anymore. And I was like, what else can I do to make myself feel better? And I looked at my mom and I said, will you take me to the mall? And she just starts laughing. She's like, you haven't even left the hospital. What are you going to do right now? And I was like, well, that nurse brought me a bear, and I know Ryan feels so alone right now, and he's about to leave on wildland firefighting, and he has nobody and nothing. I want to go to Build-A-Bear right now and build him a bear and have him take that with him so he doesn't feel alone either, because we're in this together.
How sweet.
So I actually went and got him this necklace, which he has worn for 12 years now, and it has CJC, his initials, and the date that he was born. And so I got that made for him, and I brought him a teddy bear, and I had him come to my apartment before he left, and I said, I just have something small for you. And we both just sat on my bed, And I think we sat in silence for like an hour straight, just like holding each other's hands, just looking at the wall, being like, this is our reality. This is our life now. And, you know, for us, we were like, we placed our son. There's no way we can have a relationship after this, you know, like this is a huge decision that we just made. So not only are we losing our son, but we're also losing our relationship together. And honestly, like that was so hard for me, because even though he was this bad guy and he was not perfect, don't get me wrong, but I wasn't perfect either. But we had this bond together, and that's something that we were always going to have. And he was someone that was very, very important to me. And so he walked out of my apartment and he left, and my mom came and picked me up, and I went to California with her, and my dad was graduating test pilot school. And so it was like a huge celebration. All the family was going to be there. So I was trying to like pull myself together and be, you know, present for that. And like I said, Ryan left and did wildland firefighting. You were gone for 2 months.
4.
Well, that first time though, you were gone. Yeah. So he was gone for a total of 4 months. And he calls me after he gets done for the season, because he works during the summer as a wildland, or he did. And he came home, he called me and he said, hey, I just, you know, you've been on my mind. Like, would you like to go out to dinner? And I was like, what? I was like, no. I was like, I love you, but like, we've talked about this. Like, we placed our son for adoption. We're done. We're done. I love you. And thanks for checking on me. Like, thanks for, you know, and I had gotten a photography job. So I was like traveling all over the US doing photography with all my best friends. Like, it was like the most perfect job for me. And it was for sporting events, which I loved, my passion. And so I was like, no, I'm doing my own thing. I'm dating around, like I'm good. And he's like, oh, okay. So within a week of me getting back from my job, I went out to dinner with him, and I couldn't resist.
And then we conceived our second child.
Our second child without getting married. We got pregnant again. And I think that was the hardest thing for me as well, because I said, okay, we placed our first son. We weren't married. Now do I have to place this child? Like, what's our plan? What are we going to do? And at this point we had been living together for about 2 months. And I just remember he had this long hair. He does not look good with long hair. Like, but he had like this long, like, okay, it was kind of cute. It like kind of flipped up. It was like, you know, and he was like all tan and stuff from wildland firefighting. And I looked at him and I said, if this pregnancy test, sorry, I'm backtracking. I said, if this pregnancy test is positive, you're going to get your hair cut right now, and you're going to pull your shit together, and you're going to marry me, and this is how it's going to be. And he said,
I love this.
He's like, okay.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
I love it. She
Honestly,
is
we're
like,
like,
listen,
I
get it
literally got my
together.
haircut like 5 minutes later. Like
5 minutes later,
it was across the street.
I
So we
held
walked
his
across
hand.
the street. It was like some cheap ass like
Sam's
something,
Cuts or something, like
something
whatever.
cuts or whatever.
Yeah, Craig's Cuts or something.
Fast cuts, I don't know.
And I'm just sitting with my hands folded, and I literally had a positive pregnancy test in my pocket, and I was so upset. Like, I was so mad. I was like, shave his head for all I care. I was like, I'm just not prepared for this right now. Like that, like I'm pregnant again, out of wedlock again, and we're already living with each other and
But
causing
this time we
commotion.
kind of like each other.
No, we kind of loved each other at this point.
Yeah.
So, so then he was like, calm down. I love you. It's going to be okay. We're creating a family now, and it's okay. And, you know, for me as a birth mom, like there was so much guilt. Like, okay, so I'll place my first son, but then I'll have another child with you, and what, keep that child?
Right.
Like, how are you going to explain that to him?
Yeah.
And then what if it didn't work out? What are we going to tell him?
Right.
And, you know, all of those racing thoughts were just going through my head, and I had no idea how to process it all. And luckily, you know, Ryan being the Ryan he is, he can be a pain in my ass, but he does love me. And you're my biggest critic as well. We keep each other in check. We're really good that way. But we do love each other. And at the end of the day, we gave birth to Maya, and we got married 3 months later. We planned our wedding in like what?
A week.
I don't even think it was that long. I think it was like, yeah, 3 days.
Yeah, maybe.
I called my mom and I was like, hey mom, we're getting married. And she was like, no, you're not. I was like, no, we are. We're getting married. And it's not in the temple. And obviously. And
Obviously.
we're gonna go to the courthouse and get married. And I kid you not, that woman was on a flight and at my doorstep within 12 hours. And she said, no, we are planning a wedding. You are not getting married in the courthouse. And she went and bought hundreds of roses, prepared everything, got us a cake,
found us a backyard,
got chairs all set up. Like, she's just like, nope, I haven't been there for you. I'm gonna be there for you now, and I want you guys to start your marriage off right. And my mom is a saint. Oh my gosh, she is she's the reason I'm the way I am. So
I was about to say, I think I know where you got the whole entire, if this comes back positive, you were getting your haircut, because literally what I just heard was my mom, what you said, like speaking as you, it's like, my mom was like, no, you are not doing this. You are going to start out like, I see this and I love it. I love that correlation. It's fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, no, my mom has been through a lot, and she has always, that is the one thing I love about her. And I think that I got from her is hard work and doing shit right. That's what I have to say. She's all about, nope, this is how you do it, and you're gonna do it right, and you're gonna make the best out of it, and you're gonna be positive, and you're gonna go for it. And I think hard work correlates with that. So maybe that's one thing, but I'm just extremely grateful for her. And for her, we had some hard times, especially when I was pregnant. I mean, I think about my daughter getting pregnant and I'm like, I don't know how I would handle it. I think, again, it's all new to her too. So I think everyone was dealing with it in their own way. And now we have a great relationship with both of our moms and our families, and they like us. Kind of.
Most days.
So yeah, and now we have
4 of our own.
Yep, 4 kids, 1 girl and 3 boys.
And we were meant to have children because we even had one post vasectomy too.
We could do a podcast on that, honestly.
I was gonna say, God said, "Ha."
God said, no. Here you go. Here's another one.
About divine intervention. That is, it's truly an amazing story, actually.
Yeah.
And I'll give you the cliff notes of it. Because we got pregnant after my vasectomy, we actually found out after she had asked for a hysterectomy afterwards, because mine didn't work, obviously, that she had precancerous uterine cells.
Wow.
And so if it wasn't for that experience, she would have ended up with cancer.
Yes. So it all, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So thank goodness that the vasectomy didn't work.
We're supposed to be here.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And honestly, oh my gosh, our little Cohen, he is like my favorite. He's so cute. He's got little chubby cheeks, and he's just, I just love him. Are you still in shock right now?
I'm just in shock at how it's almost like God is playing I just don't know how else to say it, but like God's playing like a connected dot game with y'all. And he's like, and y'all are like, no, the game's over. And God's like, no, it's not. It's not over. Like, we're gonna keep going.
And that's what I was talking about earlier, is like, we've had so many things in our life just like fall into place. Like his firefighter job that he has now, I was pregnant with Maya. I was working 3 jobs. He was working 3 jobs. We were just trying to make ends meet.
Oh, you were poor as heck.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And I wanted to stay home with my kids. And so I said, no, we're both working our asses off. And then I'm going to stay home and you're going to take care of us. So you got to figure that. My mom again, you're going to figure this out. And he actually went and applied to be a full-time firefighter. And in Utah, it's very competitive. I think he was like 1 out of 600 people that applied. And he got, were you second runner up? So you didn't get in the camp. And then someone called in sick and said that they couldn't come into camp. So Ryan got into camp when I was 3 months pregnant. So he was able to finish camp and become a full-time firefighter, get full benefits, a full career, all before I gave birth to her. And it just like all fell into place perfectly. And don't get me wrong, he worked his ass off for it. And he still does. Like, he's up for a promotion next month. And I've never met a more hardworking person than this guy. And so
that's amazing.
like I said, everything just kind of falls into place, and it worked out exactly how it's supposed to work out.
Do you guys ever like, I don't know if you can relate, but do you guys ever feel like things are going so right that there has to be something around the corner that goes wrong?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
you just have that gloomy
Yes.
feeling of like, oh gosh, like something's going to happen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's
Like you're
the
just waiting
last
for that shoe to drop.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm like, are you
It's like-
cheating on me? Like, I
Yeah,
feel like
like-
something's not right.
Yeah. Something like
This is too good
there's
to
too
be
many
true
good things
here.
going on,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, it's
So I don't know.
I can relate to that because that's the way I felt right like a couple months ago. I started feeling that. I was like, gosh, things are just really lining up for me. Like life is just going great. Like I don't understand. Okay, something bad's gonna happen. What's gonna happen? Like
Right. What do
something
I need to prepare for?
what bad thing is gonna happen? And I think I was sitting in church service one day and our pastor was talking about like people hold on to their past mistakes longer than they should. And that gives them, when things are going right, they're like, but I don't deserve this. So they start thinking like terrible things. And he's like, you shouldn't think like that. You should. And he started naming off people in the Bible he was like, you think they're so fantastic. Let's talk about what they did wrong. We don't talk about that normally. Let's talk about this. And I walked out of that service and I was like, okay, God, I hear you. Like that. Okay. I'm gonna stop thinking about the other shoe. Like that other shoe is on somebody's foot. Like, so
it's not going to drop.
That's great advice.
it's not going to drop.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, well, and it's funny because I sent that about to Melena because that was the service that made me go, I've got to get rebaptized. Like this is,
and
I've got to stop. And I did like
and
last
she did
Sunday.
in her church. It was awesome.
And it was one of those, like the other shoe was about to drop, like that looming feeling of God, life just makes too much sense right now. Things are too great. This is something bad, something. So yeah, no, I relate to that wholeheartedly.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. This is true. I feel like
Share.
We're lucky to have what we have. But there are times where I'm like you said, looking back at your past, I'm like, hey, we did place our first son for adoption. We didn't have like that big fancy marriage and reception. And, we didn't do things right. We had kids before we got married. And it's really easy to get into that like dark cycle of thinking maybe our life isn't as great as we think it is, or maybe we're not as great as we think we are. And, when stress sneaks in and when things are hard, it's really easy to get stuck in that mindset of thinking, is this all a lie? Like what's going on here? And that goes back to perspective. I think perspective is huge. And it's something that that's like kind of my motto is life is all about perspective, which is why I love people unconditionally. I let them think what they want because I know it has nothing to do with me. And I think that's where I was able to get over my own guilt of everything and realize that no one is ever going to be in my shoes exactly. They're not going to know my perspective. They're not going to know my personal struggles. And so I don't know any of their personal struggles either. So I'm just going to love them unconditionally and I'm going to be there for them. And that's kind of, my whole stance on life. So I'm trying to just keep that positive energy going so that she doesn't drop, hopefully. See how I said hopefully? See, I'm still on that right there. Yeah.
I think it's both of y'all's story. I think even though all perspectives are different and journeys are different, though you're leading by example,
right?
And you're sharing your story, and that's going to help somebody. Someone is going to relate to what both of you or one of you or like. It's just, I'm just amazed by the whole thing. Like,
oh yeah,
the whole thing. Good, like Melena.
Well, when I found her, that's why I wanted her, but she wasn't ready to share. And so then as soon as she was ready to share, I was like, hell yeah, you're coming on.
I was
that's why
worth the wait. Worth the wait.
Don't be sorry that you weren't ready, because there was obviously lots of, healing and stuff you had to figure out. It's never like if I got offended by a no, then that's my problem. Just like you said, it's not your problem, it's my problem. And I didn't. I was like, okay, I'll just keep her in the back of my mind.
You're so sweet. And I'm so glad. I really am glad because I work at a nonprofit adoption agency right now. And so for me, that job fell into my lap as well. Like I was not wanting to go to work. I was not wanting to work with adoption because even though it's been 12 years, it's still so fresh to me and the things I wouldn't think would trigger me actually trigger me. And on those days, I like kind of take a step back and be like, okay, why did that trigger me? I know what they said had nothing to do with me. Why am I taking it personal? And it's helped me. Like, even I've only worked there for about 7 months now, and it's taken me the past 7 months. I've learned so much, and I've been able to heal so much and see where I've needed to heal. And it's helped me be a better mom. And I don't know about being a better wife. I'm kind of a pain in the ass lately. I'm trying though. I can't be perfect. I can't be perfect. So yeah, I just appreciate you having us on here and for keeping me in your mind and for letting us share, because now that I'm in this place, I feel like it's really important for people to see again all different sides of perspectives on adoption. So
No. And I love it. No, and I'm seriously so appreciative of it. And I told Delancey, because she watched the interview that I did with you, and she's like, you need to get Makenzie on, because I'm like, dude, she's got a wild story. I'm like, she's got an amazing story, but I know she's got to be in a spot where she can share it. And then I saw that you shared it on yours, and I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna go ask her right
There's
now.
the spot. There it is. There we are.
that's ready. Right there.
Green flag means go. Well, and it's because I watched the interview that y'all had done, and it was like 5 minutes in, I text Melena and I was like, okay, I'm watching this. I'm 5 minutes in. Like, Makenzie needs to come on. Like, you need to make that happen. There's just something, and it wasn't anything that you directly shared.
Yeah.
It was just something about you. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I knew there was just something about you that I was like, there's something special here. There's something. And when Melena went into like a little more detail, like she has a wild story, like, she needs to be in a place to come on. I was like, okay, but when she's ready, when she's in that place, we need to have her on, because there's just something about you on your podcast that said that to me, it just said that there was so much more than what we were seeing.
Right.
You know what I mean? And Melena was like, absolutely. There 100% is. Yes, you're very right. I was like, good. I like being right. So let's make this happen.
Let's do this. Oh, I appreciate you saying that. And I'm so glad. I really am so glad. And I definitely did not head that podcast. Mindy loves talking more than I do. So she took over on that. So I appreciate you doing that with us and, sharing your story, because I love your story too. And I haven't heard your story yet. So I would love to hear it as well.
Well, no, I'm just saying, like, my story is actually my biological parents' story is very similar to y'all's story.
She did. She texted me when you guys started talking.
I texted her when you started talking. I texted her, I was like, oh my God, the
birthday.
similarities are crazy. Like, this is nuts. It like quick synopsis.
You like us too. You could totally be.
I mean, I'm just, I'm not
sure you
saying
guys
that
are younger
like
than her,
time.
though, right?
I'm about to say, I'm not saying time traveler's wife is a thing, but like,
But it might be. I mean,
it could be a thing. But it was like, it was very much they met. They were overseas, both of them military.
Yeah.
Kids overseas, 19 years old. They weren't sure where they were together in a relationship. They knew they liked each other, but they didn't know they forever liked each other. And it was one of those, like, kept me a secret, and she came back to the States to have me. So when you said the comment, I was going to keep it to myself until I figured it out. I was like, holy crap, that's what my bio mom said. Like, she was tight-lipped about it until they could figure out what to do. So it was very, there is a very, we're not going to say how many years difference, but there is a many year difference in between our stories, but it's very wild to me how similar the stories are. So, and they ended up getting married a year after I was born. So
no way.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
Her bio dad did pass away. So
he did. He passed away in 86. So
yeah.
So it's a whole thing. But
it's like we could stop it, and then the listeners already know we can stop, and then you can tell them. We could do that. We do that a lot of the time.
Now that I'm working and doing a podcast as well, it is insane to me how many similarities there are in everyone's story, which makes me think that like divine intervention is a thing, because I feel like we're all on very similar paths, and that's a path we chose. And so, there's bits and pieces of us that are on that path and are very similar in a lot of ways. So I have found that so interesting.
Yeah. And what's cool is because you have that job, they're starting to cross right?
Yeah.
Starting to come in contact with these people.
It's
And
crazy.
before we hadn't even realized how many people are like us, right?
Yeah.
Unique thing to be involved in adoption, but we realized that maybe it's not that unique. Like there's so many people that we're hearing about.
Him, like, because he always asks me, he's like, well, not that many people are affected by adoption. And I'm like, no, you would be shocked with how many people.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, we have people lined up for podcasts for the rest of the year. I'm like, I had no idea how many people are affected by adoption. It's insane to me.
Right.
So I just appreciate you two doing what you're doing and just being candid and like easygoing. Like, this is an environment and this is a place where we can be vulnerable and we can be ourselves. So I really appreciate you guys having us on here and letting us tell our story, even though we're obnoxious and can't.
Oh no,
not at all.
But
not at all.
You know, man,
we appreciate it. And no, seriously, like, and your words of wisdom. And like I said, I'm excited because it's a perspective we haven't had come on yet. And so that's why I was like, Delancey, we need him to come on because both of you need to go around and start speaking more. Like, that was my first thought.
You do.
Like, seriously, to share your story more and more and more. So hopefully you guys can get to a place where you can, because that'd be freaking dope. Like, me and Delancey were like, in years, we were like, we should host something like that. So if we do, your asses will be invited to come speak.
I was about to say, if we do, I feel like it's like given that y'all are both already sleeping in there. So
it's true.
You guys cut out.
Stop it.
Did you guys say? Did you guys say it's gonna be in Las Vegas?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Sure. If that will be a definitive get y'all there, yes, it'll be in Vegas. Now I don't know when, but yes.
So funny.
Sounds good. We'll be there.
Well, I'm gonna close this portion out so we can, like, because we could go on forever with the listeners.
I know,
I'll stop this. No, don't be sorry, and we can still stick on for a sec. So anyway, thank you guys. I love how you ended it, so I'm gonna leave it at that. We usually ask for like advice, but I feel like you guys have just given so much to anybody who is looking, like how you guys were saying, you know, it goes both ways. And I love what you shared, birth mom perspective, birth dad perspective, and then also to adoptive parents who are potentially looking to adopt. So I really appreciate that. So I can tag things. Go follow them. They're freaking hilarious. They do reels together all the time that I just die. Like, they're a fun couple and their kids are adorable. No, and that's what makes it good. So stop. It's funny. I love it. So anyway, so thank you guys for coming on, and I will stop this.